Hi, welcome to another exciting episode of the Andre the Beast Creighton Show. Another exciting show, and definitely another exciting guest. I'll tell you where we're going today. We're going to talk about that beast mindset, but we're going to talk about how do you take that beast mindset and reinvent yourself. Now, let me go a little bit deeper here, because I know people have heard that before. Imagine, if you will, having the story of Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, Snow White. I can't think of the other movie with the Prince and the Frog. You know, all these beautiful stories about what life should be like growing up. And you're telling it to your daughter. Then all of a sudden you get married. 1 year goes by, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4. You know it, you got 20 years under your belt. And somehow or another, you realize that maybe something ain't right here. You feel something in your gut that the storybooks that you've been told, it ain't panning out that way. And now the key part is, when you're married in relationships, this is the hardest part of that journey. It's called for better or worse. Now, I'm going to just tell you how I feel about that. A lot of people might hate what I'm going to say. Mm-hmm. If it's worse, it's time to walk the fuck away. Plain and simple. You don't stay in dysfunction. You remove yourself from dysfunction. Mm-hmm. However, if you've been bought up with customs, you have to ask yourself, when is enough enough? Or in this case, with a female, when do you become that girl? When do you take the bull by the horn and say, you know what, I'm gonna break this shit. I'm not happy. We're not going in the same direction. I wish you the best. I wish you love, peace, and like Don Cornelius says, so. But I got to go. Today on the show, all the way from St. Louis, Missouri, we got Samantha Beard coming on the show to tell us how one season of 20 years changed her whole entire life. Samantha, what's up, baby girl?
Hey, how are you? Thanks for having me today.
I'm doing great. St. Louis, Missouri. Were you born and raised in St. Louis?
No, I'm an East Coast girl. So East Coast girl, grew up a little bit in Kentucky. I've kind of been all over. I had just a little backstory. Like my dad played professional basketball. So we moved around a ton, growing up. So I'm kind of a nomad, but I'm in St. Louis now.
Your dad played basketball. Who's your dad?
Uh-huh. So my dad, his name is Butch Beard. He played, he played in the 70s. He played for the Knicks. He played for Golden State. He won a championship with Golden State in 1975. He then went on to coach, in the NBA at the college level. So, wow. Coaching's kind of in my blood.
Wow, that sounds interesting. So tell me a little bit about your story. Let's start here with the one impactful moment where you said all of a sudden an incident in your life just pretty much changed the way you looked at life, the way that you now navigate moving forward. Tell me about what happened during that tragic season of your life.
Yeah. So, like you talked about marriage. And so, coming to the realization that, your marriage is not serving you. The person that you fell in love, you married, and you had children with, you've grown with, you realize, coming to a realization that neither party is happy. And so having to make a decision and have the courage to make that decision on what's going to be best for me moving forward. And that's what I have to do. And so, that's what kind of catapulted, this whole I'm that girl movement. And really, using fitness, using, mindset shifts, using fashion to rebuild confidence.
Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
In order to, you mentioned 20 years. I assume 20 years of marriage.
20 years, together 20 years, dated a few of those years, and then, yeah, so married 17 years.
When did the shift start to change? Because usually if you've been married that long, you know, sweethearts, dated, blah, 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 you had to have seen whether or not this person was going to be compatible for you on long-term basis. So did you get into this with the hopes, dreams, and aspiration, or did you do it because that's what you thought you were supposed to do? Because somewhere along the line, you knew this person before you even walked down that aisle. At least you thought you did.
Yeah. So the flags were there. The red flags were there. And as someone who believes in marriage, believes in relationships, believes in, you know, working through things and trying to figure things out, and you want to believe that a person is going to evolve and change for the better. And but when you realize that that is not what's happening, and that they're kind of evolving into a person that you don't even recognize, again, something has to change. There's just something that has to change.
What were the flags? What were some of the flags, and about how old were you when the flags? There must be a lot because you're laughing. So
They're flags.
when did you start recognizing the flags? About what age, and what were some of them? I mean, what I mean by some of them, what was the ones that you look back on now that you might have thought at the time? And this is what usually happens in relationships, men and women. We see those flags and we think we can take care of those flags. We can put them out.
Yep.
So which ones that you think you can put out, and then 20 years later, they wind up really being something that was totally out of control?
One of the things I really admired about my ex-husband was that, when I met him, he was doing things he wasn't supposed to do, smoking weed, doing these things, right? And we met, and he stopped those things while we were dating. And so that was one thing I thought was really this great ability to change. And so I was like, okay, like, wow, I admired that in him, and in his ability to be able to change for the better. Fast forward to COVID. And I think a lot of things, when you're forced to sit still and really look at the person that you're with, I think a lot of things kind of came to the forefront again around addiction, and around a willingness to really get the help that you need to overcome an addiction. So I will tell you, really, the pivotal point for me, which, we were in counseling, and we were sitting with the counselor virtually because this was during COVID. And, we had identified several topics that we wanted to tackle, right? And so the counselor is sitting there, and he's like, okay, so here's a handful of topics that we haven't tackled yet. And he starts naming, and he said, smoking weed. So my husband turns to me, looks me in my eyes, and says, if you expect me to stop smoking weed, we're done. And so in my mind, I was like, wow, so that is more important than me. So this is not serving me anymore. I mean, obviously there was more, but in that moment, I was like, Sam, what are you doing? He's made his choice, and it's not you or your family.
But I'm pretty sure there has to be more than just somebody.
There was more.
Assumption of
I mean, there's more. There was more. I
Yeah,
mean,
because what
there
was
was mostly around, and again, there was uh, substance abuse issues.
okay?
Um, there were with him. Yeah, there's for sure more. And just again, just a unwillingness to change, an unwillingness to recognize that these things aren't healthy. They're not good. They're causing a lot of friction, but also they're just not healthy.
Right
But unwilling to get help to make it better.
now, did you
Also,
guys have? I assume you have children
we do. Hmm.
as well. How was this
Yes.
impacting? How did he take his actions as it relates to you? But more importantly, I would think during the therapy session that one of the key topics that if I was a therapist, I would have brought up and asked both of you guys in that session is how is this affecting your children? Like you're not willing to change for the benefit of your children.
Hmm. Um, I think our kids were little. So, I mean, we did our very best to try to shield them from arguments, shield them from anything that was going on, between him and I. Um, and so I do think that, at a certain point, I couldn't shield, and that mostly came up, once we separated and we're going through the divorce. I felt like it is not my job. I can't protect him anymore. And so if there are things that the kids see or hear, I mean, they're going to see or hear them. but but when they were younger, I mean, we didn't argue, we didn't fight in front of the kids. I mean, we really did try to create a united front in front of them, even though behind closed doors, we were, you know, definitely not seeing eye to eye.
Was the you don't have to get too deep because I don't want to get all your personal business out, but
Okay.
I'm trying to let me see how I want to articulate this.
Okay.
I get it with the weed smoking,
Uh
but
huh.
was it more than that pushed you over the edge? Because usually, if you have one addiction, there's multiple addictions, and some of those addictions can be just as devastating. So I would throw a few of my all-time favorite out, and you can say, yeah, without having to throw anyone up under the bus. So usually when you're dealing with one or two of the addiction things, are usually another major reasons for divorces: infidelity, multiple women, finances, or the inability just to step forward to the plate and be a parent, or putting your kids or yourself or family members in harm's way. So did I kind of hit the button on some of those?
There were
And
more. Again, there were flags. There was not
okay,
just one. There were
okay,
multiple. And again, and that's, synopsizing, 20 years, 17 years of a relationship. And were there good times? Of
right.
course. But, I think at a certain point, the, the bad times outshadow the good times. And so that's where
Yeah.
it's like, okay, this doesn't feel good. And I remember telling him that. I'm like, this just doesn't feel good anymore. It doesn't feel good. And, again, you have to reach that point and then have courage to do something about it after you've been through counseling, you've counseled with friends and you've done all the things that you believe will help you not have to come to the the conclusion that the best answer is to leave. No one enters into a marriage wanting to say, hey,
Right.
I can't wait till we divorce. No one does. So you fight and you do the things that you think are going to be what's best, to not have to make that decision.
You mentioned family, friends. That's usually the outlet that men and women tend to go to. More so women. They're looking for that acknowledgement or of am I doing the right thing here?
Mm-hmm.
The fact that you guys known each other for quite some time before walking down the aisle, you had to be very well known in the community as well with each other's families. Did they see what you was going through, and if they did, um what were some of their responses?
Well, it's, it's hard, and I think, friends and family, they're there for you till they're not, until they're like, you got to make a decision, or they're tired of hearing the same stories. Um, or you have other family members who enable bad behavior, who don't believe people are doing the wrong things. And so, it was kind of a mixture of all of that. So again, that's where you then have to make that decision of what's best for you.
What was the hardest? Let me go back a minute.
Okay.
Let me go back a minute. You went to therapy. How long did the therapy sessions last? I mean, were you guys in therapy for a month, 2 months, a year?
Yeah. We went to therapy twice. Um, and the first time, it was our sessions weekly, in person. That was not during COVID. And the second time around, it was the same thing. It was an hour together, and then separately we also met with the same counselor. Um, the counselor, the second go around, also recognized he needed to work with my husband a little bit more. So he met with him more frequently than he did with me. And then we came together and also had couples sessions. So, and yeah, and both times, it was over the span of several months.
Why do you think? Okay, I just got to ask these questions. I'm sorry, I'm going to the listener's head here. When you guys leave out of the sessions, because you've been
Mm-hmm.
going for quite some time, did that
Mm-hmm.
make matters worse? Because if someone thinks they don't have a problem, the worst thing you can do is put them on this situation where they're going to be confronted with an issue.
Uh-huh. Um, yes and no. Like initially, I think there was some awareness of, wow, like, gosh, I got to be better. Gosh, I really, I got to make a change, and again, that happened where there was some awareness, some recognition, but the changes weren't long lasting.
Let me go here.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think went wrong? What do you think went wrong there with the sessions
What do I think went
with
wrong
you
with the
guys?
sessions?
Like
You know,
usually when you're in session, you said
Mhm.
something about there was recognition and then there was a recidivism. The person went
Mhm.
back to doing what they were comfortable doing.
Mhm.
So what do you think went wrong on that end? Because usually when you hear people going to sessions, there's usually a pretty good ability to talk things out and come to grips with this is what I need to do. I need to change. You need to change. Let's make this work for the sake of our children. But that wasn't the
Mhm.
case. So what do you think went wrong as it relates to your therapy?
Um, I don't know if it just we didn't give it enough. And I say we because I'm not putting all the blame onto him or at any, but maybe we didn't give it enough time. Maybe we didn't, maybe we should have gone to counseling a little bit longer. Um, maybe, we weren't 100% truthful about where we were, even as we were entering into counseling. So, there's a lot of what ifs, but um,
You mentioned something. You
yeah.
said maybe. I listen real closely.
Oh, I get
You
that.
said that maybe. You said that maybe. And I think people need to realize this, and I think people need to listen to this part. We may not have been 100% truthful.
Mhm.
That's deep. And thank you for acknowledging that.
Mhm.
Now that you look back,
Mhm.
what on your end, because we can't speak for him.
Mm-hmm.
Now that you look back, what do you think that you wasn't 100% truthful about? That if maybe you had have been,
Mm-hmm.
it could or it may not could have swayed the difference. Because I think that's cool for people to understand, and I'm glad you're transparent enough to bring it out. Because when you
Yeah.
go to therapy, I'm not saying therapy is good for everybody, but it's only as good as the information you provide the therapist to work with.
You do have to be truthful. You have to be truthful. And I think that's, one of the things that I've recognized even through divorce, post divorce, and getting back into the dating world is that you have to be truthful. You have to be authentic. You can't shrink. You can't shrink yourself in hopes that something else will happen. You have to be real. And if I had to really look back, maybe I wasn't real enough about where I was even entering into our couples therapy, that I was maybe a little further checked out.
I was getting ready to ask that. What do you mean when you say further checked out?
Further checked out, meaning at a place where I wasn't sure if we could come back from all that had happened between him and I.
Because I was getting ready to say that it seems like either one or both of you guys were really ready to check out, but I think you guys were probably protecting each other's feelings to some degree.
Mm-hmm.
That's saying, I know this is not what she wants to hear. I know this is what he doesn't want to hear, but technically, I've already checked out.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, again, I can't speak for him, but yeah, I mean, it was the second go round felt more like a last ditch effort. You know what I mean? To save the marriage.
When you did check out, when you did walk away, a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times divorce can be very unpleasant. When the time for you guys to both check out, what was that like for you as far as trying to go on with your own life?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not fun. It's not fun. Regardless if it's your decision or not, regardless if it's like you're realizing, hey, this isn't working for me, I need to step away. It takes a large amount of courage to come to that conclusion.